While right now we have Rox, Whitebeard, and Kaido teaming up against Imu, this is not the actual final fight of God Valley. The actual final fight of God Valley will involve the three main protagonists of this flashback, Rox, Roger, and Garp, all against Imu, and the entire flashback so far has been leading up to this main event. The greatest team-up in One Piece history that also sets up the entire modern-day conflict in One Piece that we have today. So before getting into the Rox, Roger, and Garp trifecta that is going to emerge, we need to first explain why this current situation of Rox, Whitebeard, and Kaido versus Imu is temporary and is soon going to change. Why do I believe that it's going to turn into Rox, Roger, and Garp being the stars of the show? Well, before we get into it, you really don't want to miss this, because something absolutely massive just dropped in Raid Shadow Legends. The Ultimate Death Knight is back, and if you join as a new player right now, you can actually get him for free using promo code UDKing. If you're curious about Raid, I found that the Ultimate Death Knight makes the early game 10 times easier and makes for a really fun way to try Raid out. The Ultimate Death Knight literally takes every hit for your team, passive redirects all single target attacks and debuffs to himself, heals himself anytime enemies heal, shields and heals your entire team, and he shuts down enemy legendaries with provokes, fears, and debuffs. The Ultimate Death Knight just feels ridiculously powerful and easy to play with, and he is good everywhere. Campaigns, dungeons, boss fights, you name it. He's especially broken in Arena. And if that wasn't enough, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collab is still live. That's right, we all know the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from our childhoods, and now you can literally play as the Turtle Squad. Between now and November 13th, you can unlock Michelangelo for free just by logging in for 7 days. Then fuse Donatello, summon Leonardo, Raphael, April, and you can even challenge Shredder in a limited event to get the exclusive Chronophage gear set. Collect all 6 to unlock a special bonus reward. So just download Raid using my link below or just scan the QR code. Use promo code UDKing to claim Ultimate Death Knight for free, and you will also get a huge starter pack with Epic Chonoru, another Epic Uugo at level 15, and Michelangelo just for logging in for 7 days. But the best part is that new players can pick one free legendary of their choice. With my promo codes, you can choose between Green Warden Roark, Alice the Wanderer, Tohanarok, Tallin Foulbeard, or Sun Wukong. All promo codes are listed here, and you can only get these rewards by using my link below, not in the App Store. So follow the link and come find me under username Mr. Morge. So to begin with, I don't think that Kaido is going to last long in this fight. Not because Kaido is weak in general, but because 1, Kaido is very young right now, so he's nowhere near his full strength, unlike Rox, who is of course already in his prime, and Roger, Garp, and Whitebeard, who are a lot older than Kaido and are generally much closer to their primes. Among these 5 characters of Rox, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, and Kaido, Kaido should be the odd man out, with him having a long way to go before reaching, let's say, Yonko level. Rather, I think the point of Kaido's inclusion in this scene is for him to learn an important lesson that he espouses later on in his life. Namely, that Haki trumps devil fruits, because what has been Kaido's little journey throughout this whole flashback? Kaido, in pretty much all of his panels in this flashback so far, it's all been centered around him wanting a devil fruit. Most likely ever since he initially joined Rox's crew, and in that first crucial scene when he heard from Rox that one of Rox's main goals to conquer the world was to acquire 2 very important devil fruits that would allow him to do so, and Kaido was immediately like, okay, let's go after these devil fruits. From that moment on, every single scene of Kaido in this flashback has been him saying he wants a devil fruit. He wants a devil fruit. What Rox said about the devil fruits likely stuck with him, and Kaido became obsessed with the idea that he needs a devil fruit to reach the level of the strongest. And now he has finally gotten his fruit, and he is entering this battlefield of the strongest characters in the entire world all lined up together. And Kaido, despite being so much younger and less experienced than the rest of them, he feels like right now he is ready to be on the same battlefield as them because he has just eaten this fruit and is feeling all powerful. However, we know that from later on in life, Kaido has come to believe that no, the fruits actually don't matter that much. Haki is the big deal. Haki is what transcends all. So where is it that Kaido has this realization that, Haki is actually what really matters and not devil fruits? We know that at some point there must have been a moment where Kaido learned some sort of a lesson that this whole devil fruit obsession that he had was misguided and that he actually needs to turn his attention towards improving his Haki to become stronger. Where could this realization probably have come from, well, it looks pretty clear to me that the entire way that Oda has been setting up Kaido's little narrative arc over the course of this flashback has been leading to this moment where he's going to be fighting amongst the strongest Haki users in the entire world, in a battle where he is clearly going to realize that he is the weakest by far in terms of strength. I think the whole mini storyline that Oda was setting up for Kaido in all of this was for him to get to this battle, having believed that he has now acquired the thing that would make him the strongest, this devil fruit that he's been coveting for so long, and then here coming to realize that he is still out of his depth because what the rest of them have that he currently does not is top tier Haki. And I think Kaido is going to experience that firsthand here, and that this will be a bit of a humbling incident for him that gives him a change in mentality and makes him understand that just getting the devil fruit wasn't enough. This is where the mentality that it's Haki that's really important, it's Haki that transcends all, this is where it will be born, and this is what shapes Kaido into becoming the Haki monster that he himself is later on in the story. So I think everything is pretty much set up here for Kaido to learn a lesson in the next couple chapters, meaning that I believe he will be taken out of the fight relatively early on compared to the rest, because I think this will be the demonstrative moment where he learns the hard way that Haki trumps devil fruits. So Kaido, I think, set to be taught a quick lesson and potentially be knocked out of the fight relatively early. Now that should leave Rocks and Whitebeard versus Imu, correct? Well, I think that something will happen that will take Whitebeard out of the equation as well, because Imu actually still has a notable comrade of his own on his side in the battlefield, and that is Garling. And yes, I know Garling did just get humiliated really badly by Rocks, but that doesn't mean that Garling is actually out of the fight. Garling is still there on the scene. He should just be regenerating at the moment, because remember, even with the proper application of Conqueror's Haki that Scopper Gaban talked about, the Holy Knights are still able to regenerate. It just makes the regeneration very difficult for them, but not impossible. So as we saw, despite Rox's Conqueror's Haki attacks, while it significantly slowed Garling's ability to regenerate, he was still regenerating, suggesting that at some point or the other, Garling should be able to get back up and fight alongside Imu's side. And while Garling is obviously not on Rox's level at all, considering the fact that Whitebeard is not yet at his prime, it's very possible that Garling could serve as at least a distraction for Whitebeard. Because again, we all know about that very notable line that Whitebeard said when he first met Shanks, which is that Shanks' face reminded him of the man who gave Whitebeard that scar. And considering that Whitebeard and Garling were on opposite sides of the greatest battle in pirate history, God Valley, and considering Garling and Shanks have the exact same identical face, it is still very possible that Garling was the man who once scarred Whitebeard. Maybe Garling had to fight dirty to do it, I don't know. But I would remind readers that just because Rocks was too much for Garling doesn't mean that Garling is weak. In fact, Oda has outright confirmed that Garling is a very strong character in One Piece, and we will soon see why. So considering the tease we've had so far about Garling having potentially scarred Whitebeard in the past, and Garling still being on the battlefield just slowly recovering, and Imu likely demanding that his strongest remaining soldier get back to fighting on his side, I do think that Whitebeard will soon be distracted and pulled away from the fight long enough for it to turn into Rocks versus Imu. But not for long, because the true team-up that this was all leading up to, the main matchup, was always going to be about Rocks, Roger, and Garp, and then finally, of course, Imu. This is because this entire flashback has centered from the very beginning around this core trio of Rocks, Roger, and Garp. The narrator made that very blatantly clear from the get-go that this story is about them, these three legends. And even from the very beginning of the God Valley incident, the narrator highlighted the four major players of this entire conflict, which was of course Rocks, Roger, and Garp, with the villains being the Celestial Dragons, initially represented by the Holy Knights, but now of course represented by the true boss, Imu. That is how the God Valley incident's framing began, with these four major pillars, and now this is what the God Valley incident is concluding with. Rocks, Roger, Garp, with their sights set on the primary villain, Imu. And to fully understand the significance of this trinity of Rocks, Roger, and Garp, and why it's so important that Oda has woven this entire story together to center around them, consider the setup of the final saga conflict that we have in the modern day of One Piece. Look at this image of all the major characters in the modern day of One Piece. We have, of course, the villains underneath Imu, Garling, Shamrock, and Akainu. But then looking at all the other major characters, they are all offshoots of either Rocks, Roger, or Garp. Blackbeard is Rocks' son. Shanks and Buggy are Roger's sons, raised by him. Dragon and Luffy are Garp's descendants, while Aokiji and Kobe are Garp's disciples. The entire modern cast of major One Piece characters today all originated with this trio of Rox, Roger, and Garp. And that is why in this flashback we're going back to the very beginning. Their battle against Imu was the destined showdown that essentially served as the genesis of the modern day conflict in One Piece that we are seeing today that is finally about to reach its conclusion. Now, how will this whole fight go down? I believe there are two scenarios. The perfect scenario where everyone is happy is Rox, Roger, and Garp teaming up to fight against Imu. That is scenario number one, but it is of course extremely difficult to imagine how this scenario could play out with Garp not then being fired shortly after. The fact that Garp is still in the Marines means that he must not have fought directly against Imu, right? But at the same time, it is extremely difficult to imagine Garp just standing around with his hands in his pockets while Roger and Rox fight against Imu, especially considering Garp's reactions to everything that has happened so far. I am still holding out hope that there was some way that Garp was able to participate in this fight without Imu knowing. However, the second scenario that is a little bit more plausible is that Imu was able to gain control over Rox thanks to Dami Reversi, as we've seen Imu do in the past, and then Roger and Garp teamed up to fight against an Imu-controlled Rox. In this vein, it would essentially have started out as Rox and Roger against Imu before turning into Roger and Garp teaming up against an Imu-controlled Rox, which does fit along the lines of what Sengoku once told us about how this battle went down. But before we get into it, ships set sail now. This month, we're proud to present our brand new exclusive Legendary Ships collection. 16 iconic ships and their crews rendered in a vivid, mid-century travel ad style. Coast the coasts in Roger's Oro Jackson, plummet the depths with Law's Polar Tang, bring the dawn with Luffy and the Thousand Sunny, along with many, many more. And this month, you can get a special buy two, get two free deal for any ships auto-applied at checkout. And if you want an even bigger discount, you can get all 16 posters with our complete Legendary Ships bundle. And on top of all that, as a bonus this month, we're giving you free worldwide shipping for each order. Lastly, our Legendary Ships collection will last till the end of the month of October before going out of production. The exclusive Going Merry already sold out within the first week, so collect your posters quick before they set sail. Now either way, no matter which scenario this battle plays out in, I believe that the battle ends with Roger having a major Haki bloom that gets the protagonists the victory. So why do I say this? It's because to begin with, we know that Roger has to reach Pirate King level somehow. I know readers say that Roger will just get there as he gets older and hits his prime, but that's not really how this works. One Piece growth isn't linear based on age. It's about how many extreme battles you go through. Because Haki blooms can only occur in extreme difficulty fights. Your Haki doesn't just magically go up as you get older, your Haki only blooms by fighting in the highest level battles imaginable. That's why Luffy is going to reach Pirate King level by like age 19. Because the way Luffy's approaching his journey, he's basically cramming in a ton of extreme difficulty battles back to back to back to back in a very short period of time. And Luffy will reach his peak of Haki in the story once he fights his hardest battle in the story. Roger's Haki growth should follow the same logic. This is the hardest battle that he will ever have in the entire story. He is facing God himself here. Whenever Roger got his greatest Haki bloom that took him to the top, it must have happened here at God Valley, because where else could it possibly have been? Remember, the narrator also talks about how before it was Roger's era, it was Rox's era, and we know that this incident is going to be the passing of the torch moment, where it essentially stops being Rox's era and starts being known as Roger's era, suggesting that this would be the moment where Rox ultimately falls and Roger rises up to supplant him at the top of the pirate world. There's also major hints that Oda has dropped about this, as Kaido has even talked about how Roger, through Haki alone, was able to bring the world to heel. What did Kaido mean by this? When did Kaido see this level of Haki from Roger? It must have been in this grand battle that they all participated in. Likely the very same battle that Kaido realized that the value of Haki is far greater than devil fruits. I also wonder if it's just a coincidence that Imu is being referred to as the quote-unquote world here, and some translations have Kaido saying that Roger brought the quote-unquote world to heal through his Haki. Lastly, we know that Imu doesn't just kill Roger, Whitebeard, and Kaido here. They're all able to survive this battle somehow, so what drives Imu away? Well, the one thing that we've seen legitimately shake Imu was Joy Boy's insane Haki release. Is it possible that Roger gets a Haki bloom that allows him to do something similar to Joy Boy? And finally, Garp himself has referenced an occasion where he has seen Roger turn into an unstoppable demon, one that could not be defeated. And we have yet to see that quote-unquote demon side of Roger come out. Not in this flashback, not in the Odin flashback, not in Chapter 0. Oda has still been hiding from us the peak level of Roger in combat, and I believe that he's been saving it for this battle. The most important battle of Roger's life, where the entire pirate world and God himself were all assembled. Because what better time to turn into an unstoppable demon than when you're fighting God himself. So I am extremely excited for the upcoming big battle between Rox, Roger, Garp, and Emu. Let me know in the comments below how you think this fight is going to go down, and if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe. And use my link below or scan the QR code to download Raid and get 2 free epics plus the legendary Ultimate Death Knight using promo code UDKing.